Holocaust Memories, Never Forget. Section 1, Origins of Antisemitism. From antiquity until Hitler is named Chancellor of Germany, the 30th of January 1933. Part 4. Jews had been living in what we know as Germany since the time of Charlemagne, who died in 814, and many of them were merchants whose business took them east into what later became Poland. Based on restrictive laws from the Roman Catholic hierarchy throughout Europe, Jews faced increasingly restrictive laws which sought to isolate them from Christian society. Along with random beatings, murders, and forcing them into crowded ghettos, some nations, including England, France, Spain, and Portugal, eventually expelled their entire Jewish population. During the Crusades, Jewish towns and villages in England and Europe were often razed, and the population massacred by armies heading to the Holy Land. In Poland, some Catholic priests were guilty of inciting violence against the local Jews, and during the Great Plague, Jews were murdered all over Europe after accusations claiming that they caused it. During the 17th and 18th centuries, many European nations, including Germany, loosened their restrictions on Jews and began the slow process of integrating them into normal society. During the 1700s and 1800s, the Enlightenment was one of the factors which opened the door for Jews to assimilate in large numbers. Part of this assimilation took the form of converting to Christianity, but the inherent antisemitism of most Europeans never allowed them to accept these new believers into the Christian community. In Germany, another factor arose from the scientific world to stifle Jewish hopes of full acceptance. Eventually called racial antisemitism, it was a widely held belief that Jews originated from a separate and significantly inferior racial category and that nothing they could ever do, including conversion, could fully remove their genetic makeup and finally be accepted. Additionally, the centuries-old belief by the Germanic people that they belonged to the Aryan race, and were thus vastly superior to all other ethnic groups, made Jews especially abhorrent. Two 19th-century writers in Germany helped propel the false belief that Jews were racially impure and could never be accepted as true Germans. One was Heinrich von Treitschke, who died in 1896, and the other was Wilhelm Marr, who passed away in 1904. Von Treitschke was an historian, political journalist, and had become famous for several reasons, not the least for having written the history of Germany in the 19th century. However, he was most well known for a quote that spread across Germany and which resonated in millions of voices well into the 20th century, "The Jews are our misfortune." As Jews continued to assimilate into Germanic society and prosper in careers and businesses from which they had once been excluded, Germans who considered themselves ethnically pure grew alarmed, and eventually angry. They began to believe that Jewish success was not only decimating the German economy and cutting deeply into their profits, but it was diluting their Aryan purity and destroying the very core of German identity. Adding his voice to millions of other Germans who were hoping to rid their nation of this foreign power, Wilhelm Marr wrote tracts and essays attacking Judaism in all its forms. Credited with coining the phrase antisemitism, Marr claimed that Germany's liberal policies had allowed the Jews to take total control of the nation's industry, banking, and financial systems. Accepting the fact that Jews were a separate race, Marr envisioned two scenarios for the future of Germany. The first, the way of Germanicism over Judaism, went into its 12th printing by 1879. The converse outcome Marr envisioned was called the way of Judaism over Germanicism. As a champion of the Germans' victory over Judaism, Marr worked hard to convince the German people that they had no choice but to eradicate the Jewish threat from their society. Hitler not only agreed with Marr, von Treitschke, and a host of other Germanic writers who detested Jewish presence in their society, but he was formulating his own plan to carry out the annihilation of every Jew in Europe.